The guard's voice carried across the marble hall like a whip crack. "Bring me the one they call useless." Jade's stomach dropped. She'd been balanced on the edge of a chair, wrist extended over a crystal goblet while Lord Severino took another experimental sip, his face twisting in theatrical disgust. The nobles around the table had been laughing, passing her blood from glass to glass like a parlor trick gone stale. 12 years they'd been doing this. 12 years since she'd turned 18 and been brought to the Neapolitan court for the first time, her blood tested and found catastrophically, hilariously wanting. Now every vampire in the receiving hall had gone utterly still. Jade pulled her wrist back slowly. The small cut had already stopped bleeding. Lord Severino was staring past her toward the dais at the far end of the hall, his amusement replaced by something that looked uncomfortably like fear. "Now?" Severino said, his voice strangled. "My lord, we were merely... now." The voice that answered was different from the guards. Quieter. It didn't need volume. Jade felt it in her bones, in the sudden way the air seemed to press against her skin. She turned finally and looked toward the throne she'd been carefully ignoring all evening. Gideon Zaros sat with one pale hand draped across the arm of his chair, his posture so still he might have been carved from alabaster. White hair fell past his shoulders, stark against the black of his formal coat. His face was all sharp angles and cold perfection, beautiful in the way winter was beautiful, remote and deadly. He was looking directly at her. Jade had been coming to court for over a decade, always in the background, always someone's curiosity or joke. She had never once been addressed by the king, had never been important enough to warrant his attention. She stood. Her legs felt unsteady. The nobles between her and the dais parted like water. The walk across that marble floor was the longest 30 seconds of her life. She was aware of every eye on her, every whisper cut short. She was wearing a plain dress, gray wool, nothing like the silks and velvets that surrounded her. Her dark hair was pulled back in a simple braid. She looked exactly like what she was, a human from the mortal quarter, brought to court because the blood laws required it, kept around because she was harmless and occasionally amusing. She stopped at the base of the dais, 3 steps below the throne, and dropped into the curtsy she'd been taught, kept her eyes down. "Look at me." She lifted her head, met his gaze. His eyes were pale gray, almost colorless, and they pinned her in place with an intensity that made her breath catch. "You are the one called useless," Gideon said. It wasn't a question. "My name is Jade Barlow," she said quietly. "But yes, that's what they call me. Your blood provides no sustenance. None at all, my lord. No flavor, no strength, no enhancement of any kind. No, my lord." He was silent for a moment, studying her with that unnerving focus. Then he stood, and the room seemed to contract around him. He moved down the steps with inhuman grace, stopping directly in front of her. This close, she could see the faint lines of strain around his eyes, the tightness in his jaw. He looked exhausted, she realized. Bone-deep exhausted in a way that had nothing to do with sleep. "Give me your hand," he said. She extended her left hand, palm up. He took it in both of his skin cool and smooth. For a moment he simply held it, his thumb pressing against her pulse point. Then he looked up at her again. "Do you feel anything?" he asked. "Any compulsion? Any pressure on your thoughts?" Jade frowned. "No, my lord. Should I?" Something flickered across his face. Relief, maybe, or something close to it. He released her hand and stepped back. "You will stay," he said. "Close. Within my sight." "My lord?" She didn't understand. What do you need me to do?" "Nothing," Gideon said. "Simply be here. Do you understand?" "No," Jade admitted. The corner of his mouth twitched. It might have been the beginning of a smile. "Good. That makes 2 of us." He turned and walked back up the steps, settling into his throne with that same eerie stillness. He gestured, a small movement of one hand, and a chair appeared beside the dais, not on it, but close, closer than anyone else in the room. "Sit," Gideon said. Jade climbed the steps and sat. The chair was velvet, deep burgundy, far more comfortable than anything she'd ever been offered at court. From this vantage, she could see the entire hall. All the nobles who'd spent the evening mocking her, now staring with expressions ranging from confusion to outright alarm. Lord Severino looked like he might be sick. "My lord," one of the other nobles ventured, a woman in emerald silk, "might we inquire as to the reason for this arrangement?" "No," Gideon said simply, and that was the end of the discussion. The evening continued after a fashion. Petitions were heard, disputes mediated, the business of the court conducted with all its usual ceremony. But the dynamic had shifted entirely. Every vampire in the hall was acutely aware of Jade's presence beside the king, of the fact that he glanced at her every few minutes, as if confirming she was still there. Jade sat very still and tried to make sense of it. Gideon spoke little, his responses to petitioners brief and precise. He moved with careful deliberation, each gesture controlled. Several times she saw him close his eyes for just a moment, his jaw tightening, before opening them again and continuing. It was near midnight when the hall finally began to empty. The nobles departed in clusters, casting backward glances. Soon only a handful remained. The king's personal guard, a few advisors, and an older vampire who'd been standing in the shadows throughout the evening. This one wore robes of deep purple and carried himself with the kind of authority that suggested he didn't need a throne to command a room. He approached the dais now, his pale eyes moving from Gideon to Jade and back again. "An interesting choice, my lord," the elder said. His voice was smooth, cultured. "I confess I don't quite understand it." "You don't need to, Marcellus," Gideon said. "Nevertheless, a human with worthless blood, seated at your right hand, it raises questions. Let them question." Marcellus's expression didn't change, but something cold moved through his eyes. "As you wish. Shall I prepare the usual accommodations for our guest?" "No. She stays in the East Wing, the Blue Suite." That caused a stir among the remaining advisors. The East Wing was the king's private residence. The Blue Suite was reserved for honored guests visiting dignitaries. "My lord," Marcellus said carefully, "that may create the wrong impression." "It will create exactly the impression I intend," Gideon replied. He turned to Jade. "You'll be comfortable there. If you need anything, ask the attendants." "I don't understand what's happening," Jade said. She was tired of pretending otherwise. "Why am I here?" "Because you're the only person in this court I can trust to be exactly what you appear to be," Gideon said. Then, softer, "And because you may be the only one who can help me." "Help you with what?" He looked at her for a long moment, and she saw something flicker behind the cold perfection of his face. Fear, maybe, or anger so deep it had frozen over. "Someone is in my head," he said quietly, "and I need you to make them stop." The Blue Suite was absurdly luxurious. Jade stood in the center of the main room, staring at furniture that probably cost more than her family's entire house in the Mortal Quarter, and tried to process the last 3 hours of her life. Someone is in my head. A vampire king, immortal and powerful, being controlled, compelled. It should have been impossible. Vampire compulsion worked on humans, on weaker vampires, but someone of Gideon's age and strength should have been untouchable, unless whoever was doing it was older, stronger, close enough to work the compulsion slowly, carefully, over time. Jade walked to the window and looked out over the underground city. The Neapolitan court existed beneath the mortal world, carved into bedrock and lit by thousands of enchanted lights that mimicked stars. Market stalls spilled across the central plaza, night vendors selling their wares to the vampires who moved through the streets like pale ghosts. It was beautiful and strange and completely separate from the world above, where Jade had spent most of her life. She'd been tested for the blood rank when she turned 18, as all humans in Naples were. The law was ancient, designed to identify humans whose blood carried particular strength, those who could enhance vampire abilities, provide sustenance beyond mere survival. High-rank humans were prized, protected, offered positions at court or in noble houses. They lived well. Jade's blood had registered as completely inert, flavorless. The examiner had tested her 3 times, certain there'd been a mistake. There hadn't been. She was, for all practical purposes, useless to vampires, which had been fine, mostly. She'd gone back to the mortal quarter, worked in her mother's herb shop, lived a quiet life. Court had been an occasional obligation. The blood laws required her to present herself twice a year for retesting in case something had changed. It never did. And somewhere along the way, the nobles had started using her as entertainment, a curiosity, proof that not every human was valuable. She'd learned to endure it, to smile blandly while they passed her blood around and made jokes. It was twice a year, a few hours each time. She could handle a few hours. But this was something else entirely. A knock at the door startled her from her thoughts. She crossed the room and opened it to find a young woman in servant's livery, holding a tray. "My lord thought you might be hungry," the servant said, "and he asked me to tell you that someone will come for you at sunrise. You're to stay in the suite until then." "Sunrise," Jade repeated. "Doesn't everyone sleep at sunrise?" "The king doesn't sleep much anymore," the servant said. There was something careful in her tone, like she was trying not to say too much. "Will there be anything else?" "No, thank you." The servant left. Jade took the tray to a small table by the window and discovered fresh bread, cheese, fruit, wine. Human food, she realized. Someone had thought ahead. She ate mechanically, her mind elsewhere. Someone in Gideon's head, someone compelling the king. The implications were staggering. If the court knew, there would be chaos, challenges for the throne, a power struggle that could tear the entire structure apart. But Gideon had called for her specifically, the one they call useless, because her blood was inert, because she was immune to compulsion not through any particular strength, but through the simple fact that there was nothing in her blood for a vampire to latch onto. She could, theoretically, act as a shield. If her blood was in his system, if he fed from her regularly, it might dilute whatever hold his enemy had established. Jade looked down at her wrist, at the small mark from earlier. She'd been bled dozens of times over the years, always small amounts for testing. The thought of being a regular blood source, even if that source provided nothing, was strange. But not frightening, she realized. Not if it helped. The sun must have been rising above because she felt herself growing tired, despite the strangeness of the situation. She found the bedroom, a space dominated by an enormous 4-poster bed with midnight blue curtains, and collapsed onto it without bothering to undress. She dreamed of pale eyes and cold hands, and a voice saying, "Trust me," over and over until the words lost all meaning. Someone was shaking her shoulder. Jade surfaced from sleep slowly, disoriented. The room was dark, still dark, always dark, and a figure stood beside the bed. "Miss Barlow, the king requests your presence." She sat up, blinking. The servant from earlier stood waiting, holding a lamp. "What time is it?" "Just after sunset. Please, we should hurry." Jade was given just enough time to wash her face and run a comb through her hair before being whisked out of the suite and through a series of corridors she didn't recognize. They climbed stairs, passed through guarded doors, and finally emerged into a room that was clearly private. Personal. It was a study, she realized. Books lined the walls, floor to ceiling. A desk sat near the window, covered in papers. The furniture was worn, comfortable looking. This was where Gideon actually lived, she thought, not in throne rooms and receiving halls. He was standing by the window when she entered, his back to the door, still wearing the black coat from the night before, though his hair was loose now, falling past his shoulders in a pale curtain. "Leave us," he said without turning. The servant departed immediately, closing the door behind her. Gideon turned to face Jade. In the lamplight, she could see the strain more clearly, shadows under his eyes, tension in every line of his body. "Did you sleep?" he asked. "Yes, the suite it's more than I expected." "Good." He moved to the desk, bracing his hands against it. "I need to explain what's happening. What I need from you. You deserve that much before you decide." "Decide what?" Whether you're willing to help, whether you're willing to stay. He looked at her, and for a moment, the mask cracked, showing something raw underneath. Whether you're willing to trust me. Jade moved closer, drawn by the naked honesty in his voice. Tell me. And he did. It had started 3 months ago, Gideon explained. Small things at first. Moments where he'd find himself agreeing to proposals he'd meant to reject. Times when he'd turn to address someone and realize he didn't remember deciding to do so. Brief gaps in his awareness, like missing steps on a staircase. I thought I was tired, he said. We don't sleep the way humans do, but we can still exhaust ourselves. I'd been managing a trade dispute with the Roman court, negotiations that went on for weeks. I assumed I was stretched thin. But the gaps had grown larger, the compulsion stronger. 2 weeks ago, he'd found himself signing a decree he had no memory of writing, granting expanded authority to the Elder Council. Last week, he'd missed an entire evening, coming back to himself in his chambers with hours simply gone. Someone is controlling you, Jade said. Someone powerful enough to compel a king. Yes, and old enough to be patient about it. This isn't a quick grab for power, it's careful, methodical. Whoever it is has been building their influence slowly, making sure I don't notice until it's too late to fight. But you did notice. Barely. And only because of Lucian. He gestured to a small portrait on the desk, a young vampire with dark hair and a serious expression. My captain of the guard. He started questioning some of my decisions, pushing back in private. At first, I was furious. Then I realized I couldn't explain why I'd made those decisions. Couldn't remember the reasoning. That's when I knew something was deeply wrong. So you tested it, Jade said slowly. Last night, when you called for me. Gideon nodded. I'd been thinking about blood rank, about how compulsion works. It's connected to the blood, to the vampire's ability to drink and influence. The stronger the blood, the stronger the connection. But your blood... He trailed off. My blood is nothing, Jade finished. It can't sustain a connection because there's nothing there to sustain. Exactly. So I had you brought close, kept you in my sight. And for the first time in weeks, my head felt clear. No pressure. No missing moments. He looked at her intently. I could think, Jade. Just by having you near, I could think again. She understood then, fully. You want me to stay, to act as a shield. I'm asking you to stay, Gideon corrected. There's a difference. This is dangerous. Whoever is doing this won't want you interfering, and I can't guarantee I can protect you, not when I don't even know who I'm fighting. But you have suspicions. Several. There are only a handful of vampires old enough and powerful enough to compel me. Marcellus is the most obvious candidate. He's been on the Elder Council for 4 centuries, and he's been pushing for more council authority for decades. But it could be any of them, or someone I haven't even considered. He moved away from the desk, pacing. I need time. Time to investigate, to figure out who's behind this, and I need my mind clear while I do it. You can give me that. How? Jade asked. Just by being close? For now, yes. But it would be stronger if... He hesitated, and for the first time looked uncomfortable. If you fed me, regularly, if your blood was in my system, it would provide more consistent protection. You want to drink from me. I want your permission to drink from me, Gideon said carefully. There's a difference. I won't compel you, won't force you. You can say no, Jade. You can walk out of here right now and I'll make sure you're compensated for last night's trouble and returned safely to the mortal quarter. Jade studied him. This close, she could see the fine tremor in his hands, quickly suppressed. The way he held himself rigid, like he was afraid of what would happen if he relaxed. He was terrified, she realized, not just of being controlled, but of losing himself entirely. If I say yes, she said quietly, what happens? What would you need from me? Proximity, mainly. I'd want you close not constantly, but regularly. A few hours each day. And I'd need to feed from you, probably once a day, maybe more often depending on how strong the compulsion attempts are. He paused. It won't be pleasant. Your blood provides no sustenance, no strength. For me, it will be like drinking water when I need wine, but that's exactly why it works. Because there's nothing to latch onto, Jade said. Nothing to corrupt or control. Yes. She thought about her life in the mortal quarter, the herb shop, her small circle of friends, the careful, quiet existence she'd built for herself after accepting that she'd never matter to the court, never be anything more than a joke twice a year. Then she thought about Gideon's face when he'd said, "Someone is in my head," the fear underneath the cold perfection. "I'll do it," she said. "Jade, I'll do it," she repeated more firmly. "But I have conditions." He went very still. "Name them." "First, you tell me everything. I don't want to be kept in the dark. If you suspect someone, if something changes, I need to know. I can't help you if I don't know what's happening." "Agreed." "Second, if this gets too dangerous, if someone tries to hurt me because of this, you let me leave. No arguments, no trying to protect me against my will." "No." Jade blinked. "No?" "I agree to the first condition entirely," Gideon said. "But I won't agree to abandon you if things become dangerous. If you're helping me, if you're putting yourself at risk for my sake, then I'm responsible for your safety. I won't let you leave to face consequences I brought on you." "That's not your choice to make. Nevertheless, it's the only answer I can give you." He met her eyes steadily. "I won't use you as a shield and then discard you when it becomes inconvenient. That's not negotiable." There was something immovable in his voice, in his posture. Jade realized this was the king speaking now, not the frightened man from a moment ago. And part of her apart she didn't want to examine too closely, felt something warm unfold in her chest at the protective edge to his words. "Fine," she said. "Then my second condition is that you respect my choices. If I decide to leave for my own reasons, you let me go. Deal?" "Deal." "Third, I want to know what we're doing next. What's your plan?" Gideon's expression shifted, something like approval crossing his features. "You ask good questions." "I've been sitting at the edge of this court for 12 years, Jade said. "I've learned how to pay attention. Clearly." He moved to the desk and pulled out a sheet of paper covered in neat handwriting. "I've been making a list. Everyone who could theoretically compel me, ranked by age and proximity. We start investigating quietly. Lucian and 2 other guards I trust absolutely will help. We look for inconsistencies, times when council members weren't where they claim to be, expenditures that don't match the records, alliances that don't make sense. You're looking for a pattern. I'm looking for a mistake. Whoever is doing this has been careful, but nobody is perfect. Eventually they'll slip, and when they do, we'll be watching." Jade studied the list. 12 names, all elders, all ancient. Marcellus was at the top. "You really think you can find them before they realize what you're doing?" "I think I have to try." Gideon set the paper down. "But I can't do it alone, not when half my thoughts aren't my own. That's why I need you." "Because I make your thoughts your own again." "Yes." She took a breath. "Okay. Where do we start?" He looked at her for a long moment, something shifting in his expression. Then he moved closer, stopping just within arm's reach. "We start now. Are you ready?" Jade understood what he was asking. She nodded, extending her wrist. "Will it hurt?" "A little. I'll be as gentle as I can." His hand closed around her wrist, cool and steady. "You can tell me to stop. Anytime." "I know." He bent his head, his hair falling forward to hide his face. She felt his breath against her skin, cool and strange. Then the sharp sting of fangs, there and gone in a moment, replaced by a pulling sensation that was more odd than painful. She watched him drink, watched the tension gradually leave his shoulders, saw the way his eyes closed as if in relief. It lasted perhaps a minute. Then he pulled back, his tongue moving over the wounds to seal them. When he looked up at her, his eyes were clearer than she'd seen them, his expression almost peaceful. "Thank you," he said quietly. "Did it work?" "Yes. It's like static clearing. I can think." He released her wrist carefully. "How do you feel?" "Fine. A little dizzy, maybe." "Sit. I'll get you water." He guided her to a chair by the window, then moved to a cabinet and returned with a glass and a carafe. Drink. Slowly. Jade obeyed, and the dizziness faded. How long will it last? The clarity, I mean. I don't know. We'll have to experiment. But for now. He pulled another chair close and sat facing her. For now, I can think clearly enough to make plans. Will you stay while we talk? Yes, Jade said, and meant it. They talked until dawn, about the court, the elder council, the vampires who might have reason to want control of the throne. Gideon was different when he could think clearly, sharper, more focused, but also warmer somehow. He listened when she spoke, asked her opinion, treated her input as valuable rather than curious. It was strange and unexpectedly comfortable. Over the next week, a routine developed. Jade stayed in the blue suite but spent most of her waking hours with Gideon in his study, in the throne room, occasionally walking through the night market below the palace. He fed from her twice a day, morning and evening, brief sessions that left her tired but not weak. In return, she was fed well, dressed better than she'd ever been at court, and treated with a careful respect that bewildered the other nobles. The whispers started immediately, of course. The king's new favorite, the useless one, elevated beyond all reason. Some thought it was a game, a joke being played at a level they didn't understand. Others speculated about more carnal reasons. Jade ignored them all. She had a job to do. Lucian, the captain of the guard, became a regular presence. He was younger than Gideon, perhaps 2 centuries old, with dark hair and a serious demeanor that occasionally cracked to reveal a dry sense of humor. He treated Jade with careful courtesy and obvious relief. "He's better," Lucian said one evening, watching Gideon across the study. They were reviewing guard reports, looking for gaps or inconsistencies. "You've given him back to himself." "For now," Jade said. "We still don't know who's doing this." "No, but we're looking, and now we can look without him signing away his authority while we work." Lucian glanced at her. "You're braver than you think. I'm just doing what needs doing." That's what brave means. The investigation proceeded slowly. They narrowed the list of suspects from 12 to 8, then to 5. Marcellus remained at the top, but there were others, Lady Anastasia, who controlled the trade routes, Lord Severin, who managed the court's finances, Elder Constantine, who oversaw the blood laws themselves. "It has to be someone with constant access," Gideon said one night. They were in his study again, the now familiar space where he seemed most himself. "Someone who sees me regularly enough to maintain the compulsion." "That's all of them," Jade pointed out. "They're all on the council. They all have access." "True, but there might be patterns we're missing, times when the compulsion was stronger." He rubbed his temples, a rare gesture of frustration. "I need to remember better, need to piece together when the gaps happened." "What if we tried something?" Jade said slowly. "What if I stopped feeding you? Just for a few hours, controlled, to see if you can tell when the compulsion returns." Gideon looked at her sharply. "That's dangerous. So is staying in the dark. If we can figure out the timing, maybe we can figure out who has the opportunity." She leaned forward. "We'd control it. Stop the moment you felt the pressure returning, and I'd be right here." "Jade, you said you'd tell me everything. Let me help with this." He studied her for a long moment, then, reluctantly, nodded. "If we do this, Lucian stays in the room, and the moment I feel anything, we stop." "Agreed." They tried it the next evening. Lucian positioned himself by the door, hand on his sword. Jade sat across from Gideon, watching him carefully. They'd gone nearly 6 hours since his last feeding. For the first hour, nothing changed. Gideon remained himself, tense, but clear. The second hour, he started to look uncomfortable. By the third, he was gripping the arms of his chair, his jaw tight. "It's starting," he said quietly, "like pressure building. I can feel someone pushing at the edges of my thoughts." "Can you tell where it's coming from?" Jade asked. "Any sense of direction or signature?" "It's old, ancient, and patient. So patient." His eyes lost focus for a moment. "Jade, I'm here." She moved closer, taking his hand. His skin was cold, colder than usual. Tell me what you feel. Like I'm underwater. Sounds are muffled. I'm forgetting why this matters, why I'm fighting. His fingers tightened on hers. Feed me. Now. She didn't hesitate, pulled back her sleeve and offered her wrist. He bit down hard, desperate, and she felt the pull stronger than usual, almost painful. But she held still, letting him take what he needed. When he finally pulled back, he was shaking. 3 hours. That's all the protection lasts. Then we feed you every 3 hours, Jade said firmly. Whatever it takes. You can't sustain that. You'll make yourself sick. Let me worry about that. She cupped his face, surprising herself with the gesture. We're figuring this out. We're close, I can feel it. He caught her hand, holding it against his cheek. Why are you doing this? Truly, you could have walked away. Because you asked, Jade said simply, and because I think you're worth helping. Something shifted in his expression, something warm and painful at once. He turned his face into her palm, just for a moment, before releasing her and sitting back. We know the time frame now, he said, his voice rough. 3 hours. So we look at who had access to me in 3-hour windows before the compulsion started. That narrows it down. And it did. Over the next 2 days, they cross-referenced schedules and records. The list narrowed further. Marcellus still had opportunity, but so did Lady Anastasia and Elder Constantine. Then they caught their break. Lucien discovered a discrepancy in the council meeting notes. 3 months ago, right when Gideon's symptoms had started, there'd been a week-long series of private consultations with each elder. Protocol required documentation of these meetings, but one set of notes was missing, the consultation with Marcellus. Could be coincidence, Lucien said, but he didn't sound convinced. Or it could be when he established the initial connection, Gideon said slowly. A private meeting, just the two of us, no witnesses, plenty of time to lay groundwork. We need proof, Jade said. Something concrete. We can't accuse an elder on suspicion alone. No, but we can watch him. Carefully. Gideon looked at Lucien. Can you have him followed? Discreetly. Consider it done. For the next week, they watched. Marcellus kept to his usual routines: council meetings, audiences with petitioners, meals with other elders. Nothing unusual, nothing incriminating. Then, one evening, he didn't return to his quarters after the council session. Instead, he went to the deep archives, the oldest part of the underground city where the first records were kept. Lucien followed him. Watched him unlock a vault that should have been sealed, remove a book that shouldn't exist, a tome of compulsion techniques banned 3 centuries ago. When Lucien reported back, Gideon's face went absolutely cold. He's been studying forbidden compulsion, Gideon said quietly, building his ability in secret. And using you to test it, Jade added. She felt sick. You were his experiment. More than that. If he could compel me completely, he could control the throne without anyone knowing, rule through me like a puppet. Gideon stood, pacing. We have him. We have proof of him accessing forbidden materials. That's enough to bring charges. Will the council believe it? Jade asked. He's one of them. He has allies. They'll have to believe it when we show them the book. Gideon's voice was hard, decisive. Lucien, I want Marcellus taken into custody. Tonight. Quietly, before he realizes we know. What about the compulsion? Jade said. If he's arrested, will he try one last push? Try to take full control? Gideon looked at her. Will you stay with me? Tonight? Tomorrow? Until we can strip his power in the full council? Of course. Then I'll be protected. He turned back to Lucien. Do it. Now. Lucien left immediately, taking 3 of his most trusted guards. Gideon and Jade waited in the study, the tension thick enough to choke on. Every few minutes, Gideon would press his fingers to his temples, checking for the pressure of compulsion. Nothing, he said. I'm clear. You're keeping me clear. Good. Jade moved to stand beside him at the window, watching the night market below. This will be over soon. This part will be. But there will be fallout. Questions about why I didn't see it sooner, concerns about how far his control went. He glanced at her. Questions about you, your role in stopping it. Let them question. I know what we did. You saved me, Gideon said quietly. You saved my throne, my sanity, possibly my life. You asked for help. That's all I did helped. He turned to face her fully, his pale eyes intense. It's not all you did. You trusted me when you had no reason to, believed me when I must have sounded mad. You risked yourself for someone you barely knew. I know you better now, Jade said, and realized it was true. These weeks together, the long conversations, the quiet moments, the way he'd treated her as an equal rather than a curiosity, she knew him. Knew his dry humor and sharp mind, his protective instincts and surprising gentleness. I know you're a good king, a good man. That's worth protecting. Jade. He reached out, his hand hovering near her face, not quite touching. When this is over, when the council has dealt with Marcellus and the crisis has passed, what then? Will you stay? Her breath caught. Do you want me to? Yes. More than I should probably admit. His hand finally made contact, his fingers brushing her cheek. You've become important to me, not just as a shield or a tool, as yourself. I'm still useless, she said, trying for levity and failing. My blood still provides nothing. Your blood provides exactly what I need: clarity, protection, a connection untainted by power or compulsion. His thumb traced her cheekbone. But that's not why I want you to stay. I want you to stay because when you're here, I'm better, stronger, more myself than I've been in centuries. Jade's heart was pounding. Gideon! The study door burst open. Lucien stood there, his expression grim. We have a problem. They found Marcellus in the throne room, surrounded by a dozen vampires in the purple robes of the Elder Council. He was holding a blade to the throat of one of the younger council members, Lady Elena, who looked terrified. I was wondering when you'd figure it out, Marcellus said calmly. Took you long enough, my lord. Gideon descended the steps from his study entrance, Jade and Lucien flanking him. Let her go, Marcellus. This is over. Over? We haven't even begun. Marcellus's eyes glittered with cold amusement. You think arresting me ends this? I have supporters, Gideon. Others who agree that your rule has grown stale, that the throne needs stronger guidance. Compulsion isn't guidance, it's slavery. It's efficiency, and it was working beautifully until your little pet started interfering. Marcellus looked at Jade with disgust. The useless one. I never imagined null blood could serve as a shield. Quite clever, really, but ultimately futile. I'm standing here clear-minded and free, Gideon said. That's not futile, that's victory. For now. But what happens when she's gone, when she returns to her pathetic mortal life and leaves you vulnerable again? Marcellus smiled. I can wait. I have time. Eventually she'll leave or die, and then I'll be right back in your head, Gideon, deeper than before. That won't be happening, Lucien said. You'll be stripped of your position and powers, bound by the old laws. You won't be able to compel anyone ever again. If I'm convicted. That requires a trial, Lucien. A council trial. And as you can see, many of my fellow elders are here, showing their support. He gestured to the assembled vampires. Are you so certain they'll vote against me? Gideon looked at the gathered elders. Jade could see the calculation in his eyes, counting allies and enemies. It was close. Too close. You've been using forbidden techniques, Gideon said, his voice carrying through the hall. Accessing banned texts. That alone is grounds for removal. According to whom? Your captain of the guard? Marcellus shook his head. Hearsay. And even if you could prove it, studying old magic isn't the same as using it. You'd need evidence of actual compulsion, direct, undeniable evidence. We have my testimony. The testimony of a king who admits his mind was compromised? Who can't even remember large portions of the last 3 months? Marcellus's smile widened. That won't hold up in a formal inquiry. They'll say you're confused, paranoid, possibly even mad. Jade saw Gideon's jaw tighten, saw the frustration and anger warring in his expression. Marcellus was right, and he knew it. Without concrete proof, this would devolve into politics and accusations, a battle Marcellus had clearly prepared for. Then an idea struck her. Dangerous, possibly insane. But it might work. "I can prove it," Jade said. Every eye in the room turned to her. Gideon looked at her sharply. "Jade, no. I can prove it," she repeated, stepping forward. "Marcellus claims there's no evidence of compulsion. But that's not true. The compulsion is still active, it's just being blocked." "What are you suggesting?" Marcellus asked, his eyes narrowing. "I'm suggesting a demonstration, in front of the entire council." Jade looked at Gideon. "I'll leave, remove myself from your presence long enough for the compulsion to take hold again, and when it does, everyone will see the difference. They'll see you change. That's your evidence." "Absolutely not," Gideon said immediately. "If you leave, if the compulsion takes hold, I might not be able to let you back in, might not want you back in. I could order you arrested, exiled, killed." "You won't," Jade said with more confidence than she felt, "because you're stronger than you think, and because Lucien will be here. He can physically restrain you if necessary." "This is ridiculous," Marcellus said, but there was uncertainty in his voice now. "The king's moods prove nothing." "Then you have nothing to fear from the demonstration," Jade countered. She turned to the assembled elders. "Will you witness this? Watch what happens when the shield is removed." The elders looked at each other. Finally, Elder Constantine stepped forward. He was ancient, his white hair braided in the old style, his face lined with time. "I will witness it. If there is compulsion at work, we must know, and if there is not." He looked at Gideon. "Then we must address the king's instability." "Agreed," said another elder, then another. Within moments, all 12 had committed to watching. Gideon grabbed Jade's arm, pulling her aside. "Don't do this, please. I can't guarantee your safety if I'm compromised." "I know, but we need to end this, Gideon, completely. No doubts, no questions. This is how we do it." She covered his hand with hers. "Trust me, the way I've trusted you." He looked at her for a long moment, something desperate and fierce in his eyes. Then he released her, stepping back. "Lucien, if I give any order that endangers her, you stop me, by any means necessary. That's a command you will not forget or disobey, regardless of what I say later. Understood?" "Understood, my lord," Lucien said quietly. Jade walked to the far end of the throne room, as far from Gideon as she could get while still being visible. The elders arranged themselves to watch both of them. Marcellus stood rigid. Lady Elena still held hostage, though his grip had loosened slightly. "How long should we wait?" Elder Constantine asked. 3 hours, Lucian said. "That's when the protection fades." 3 hours, then. Constantine settled into a seat. "Let us see what we see." The wait was excruciating. Jade sat on a bench against the wall, watching Gideon across the vast space of the throne room. For the first hour, he paced. The second hour, he sat on his throne, rigid and tense. By the third hour, she could see the change beginning. His posture shifted, became looser, more casual. His eyes, when he looked at her, were cold again, but not with the focused coldness she'd learned to recognize. This was empty, distant. "Bring her here," Gideon said suddenly. His voice was flat, commanding. "The human, bring her to me." "My lord," Lucien said carefully. "Are you certain?" "Did I stutter? Bring her, now." When Lucien didn't move immediately, Gideon's expression darkened. "Captain, you will obey me or be removed from your position." Jade stood before Lucien could respond. "It's all right. I'll come." She walked across the throne room, aware of every elder watching. As she got closer, she could see the difference more clearly. Gideon's eyes tracked her, but there was no recognition in them, no warmth. He looked at her the way he might look at a tool or a piece of furniture. "You've been useful," Gideon said when she reached the dais. "But your usefulness has ended. You will return to the mortal quarter, tonight, and you will not come back to court. Ever." Jade's heart clenched, even though she'd expected this. "As you command, my lord." "Don't—" He paused, confusion flickering across his face. Then it was gone, replaced by that empty coldness. Don't speak unless spoken to. You forget yourself, human. He's being compelled, Jade said, raising her voice so the elders could hear. You can see the difference. This isn't him. It's discipline, Marcellus said. The king is simply reasserting proper order. He was about to banish me, Jade said, after weeks of keeping me close. Why the sudden change? Perhaps he's realized his mistake, Marcellus said smoothly. Null blood is still worthless blood. Jade looked at Elder Constantine. Ask him about me. Ask him specific questions. See if he remembers. Constantine stood, approaching the throne. My lord, when did this human begin attending you? Gideon blinked slowly. 3 weeks ago. Perhaps 4. What is her name? Another pause. I don't recall. She's been at your side constantly for nearly a month and you don't know her name? Constantine's eyebrows rose. What color are her eyes? Gideon looked at Jade. His gaze moved over her face without recognition. Brown. Or perhaps gray. They're green, Jade said quietly. You told me last week they reminded you of summer leaves. I would never say something so absurd, Gideon said coldly. You're under compulsion, Jade said, stepping closer despite Lucian's warning gesture. Someone is in your head. Someone who wants you to forget me, to send me away because I protect you. You protect nothing. You are nothing. Gideon stood, and there was menace in the movement. You are the useless one. Worthless. A joke we tolerated because it amused us. Now the joke is over. Each word landed like a blow. Jade knew intellectually, logically, that this wasn't Gideon speaking. This was Marcellus's compulsion, Marcellus's words using Gideon's voice, but it still hurt to hear. Do you remember the first night? She asked. When you told me someone was in your head and asked for help? I remember nothing of the sort. You do. You remember because you fought for that memory. You wrote it down, in your own hand. She pulled a folded paper from her pocket, a note Gideon had written days ago, a reminder to himself of why she was there. She'd carried it with her, insurance against exactly this. Read it. She held out the paper. Gideon took it, scanned it, and his face went blank. This is a forgery. It's your handwriting. Your seal. Jade looked at the elders. He doesn't remember because he's being made to forget. That's how the compulsion works. It erases his connection to me, makes me irrelevant. Then when I'm gone, there's no shield left. Enough of this, Marcellus said sharply. The girl is desperate, inventing conspiracies to maintain her position. My lord, have her removed, by force if necessary. Gideon looked at Jade. For a moment, just a moment, something flickered behind the emptiness. Then it was gone. Guards, take her to the gate. Escort her to the mortal quarter. She is banned from court. 2 guards moved forward. Lucian stepped between them and Jade, his hand on his sword. No. Captain, Gideon said, his voice dangerously soft. That's insubordination. Yes, my lord, it is. Lucian didn't back down. And I'm prepared to face the consequences, after you're free of compulsion. There is no compulsion. Gideon's control cracked, showing fury underneath. I am king here. My word is law, and I am ordering you to remove her. Then I must disobey, Lucian said quietly. Gideon moved faster than Jade could follow, crossing the distance to Lucian and grabbing him by the throat. You dare! He dares because he loves you, Jade said. She stepped forward, between them, putting her hand on Gideon's arm, because he knows this isn't you, just like I know. Gideon's grip on Lucian didn't loosen, but he looked down at Jade and for the first time seemed to really see her. Why won't you leave? Because you need me, because I... She stopped, took a breath. Because I care about you, the real you, not this, and I won't leave you to this. She rolled up her sleeve, baring her wrist. Feed from me. Please, come back. I don't need... You do. You need me. You told me so yourself. You said when I was here you were better, stronger, more yourself. She pressed her wrist against his lips. Prove Marcellus wrong. Take my blood and come back to me. For a long moment, nothing happened. Gideon stood frozen, Lucien still in his grip, Jade's wrist at his mouth. The entire throne room held its breath. Then, slowly, his expression changed. The emptiness cracked. His eyes focused on her wrist, on her face, and something like horror dawned in them. "Jade," he whispered, "I'm here." He released Lucian, caught Jade's wrist in both hands and bit down hard. She felt the pull, stronger than ever before, almost painful, but she held still, letting him take what he needed. When he finally pulled back, he was shaking. His eyes were clear again, fully clear, bright with anger and awareness. He looked at Lucian. "Are you all right?" "I'm fine, my lord." Lucian was rubbing his throat, but he was smiling. "Welcome back." Gideon turned to the assembled elders. When he spoke, his voice was cold steel. "You've seen the compulsion. You've watched it take hold and break. You've heard me say things I would never say. Watched me forget the one person who's been fighting to save me." He looked at Marcellus. "Deny it now. I dare you." Marcellus's face had gone ashen. "My lord, Save it." Gideon descended from the dais, and every vampire in the room instinctively moved back. "Elder Constantine, as the second most senior member of the council, I'm placing Marcellus in your custody. He is to be stripped of his position and powers, bound by the old laws, and held for formal trial. Do you accept this charge?" Constantine bowed deeply. "I do, my lord." "And the rest of you?" Gideon's gaze swept the council. "I want a full investigation into who helped him, who knew, who looked the other way, because this didn't happen in isolation." The elders murmured agreement, many of them looking genuinely shaken. Marcellus struggled as Constantine and two other elders took hold of him, but it was futile. Within moments he was bound with silver chains, the ancient metal suppressing his power. "You can't hold me forever," Marcellus said. "Eventually she'll leave. Eventually you'll be vulnerable again." "I don't think so," Gideon said. He turned to Jade, and the coldness left his face entirely. "Because I'm going to make sure she never wants to leave." The trial took 3 days. Jade watched from a seat beside the throne as evidence was presented, witnesses called, arguments made. It became clear that Marcellus had been working alone. His allies had known he wanted power, but not that he'd been using compulsion to seize it. The forbidden text was entered as evidence, along with testimony from Lucien and several guards who'd witnessed Gideon's strange behavior over recent months. The verdict was unanimous. Marcellus was stripped of all position and authority, his powers bound permanently, and sentenced to imprisonment in the deep vaults beneath the city. He would live, but he would never again see moonlight or taste freedom. When it was over, when the council had filed out and the throne room finally emptied, Gideon turned to Jade. "It's done," he said. "Yes. You could leave now. Go back to your life. You've fulfilled any obligation you might have had." Jade looked at him carefully. "Is that what you want?" "No." The word came out fierce, almost angry. "But I need you to know, you have the choice. I won't trap you here out of gratitude or debt. If you stay, it has to be because you want to." "What if I wanted to leave?" she asked. "Just for a little while. To see my family, check on the shop, make sure everything is all right there." Something flickered across his face, disappointment, maybe fear, but he nodded. "Of course. Take whatever time you need." "And if I wanted to come back?" "Then I'd welcome you. Always." Jade stood, closing the distance between them. "The thing is, I don't think you understand what you're asking for. If I really stay, it won't be as your shield or your tool. It won't be because of blood rank or court politics." "Then why?" Gideon asked quietly. "Because somewhere in the last month I stopped seeing you as a king who needed help and started seeing you as someone I care about, someone I want to be near." She took a breath. "Someone I think I could love, given time." His eyes widened. "Jade. But I need to know that's not just the blood talking. Not just gratitude because I helped you. I need to know that you want me, not the shield I provide, but me. Jade, the useless one with nothing to offer but herself. You were never useless, Gideon said. He reached up, cupping her face in both hands. You were exactly what I needed, what I still need, but not because of your blood. His thumb brushed her cheekbone. Stay, not as my protector or my tool. Stay as my partner, my equal, someone who challenges me and argues with me and makes me better just by being here. Is that a proposal? Jade asked, her heart pounding. Not yet, but it's a promise that one is coming. He leaned forward, resting his forehead against hers. I'm asking you to give this a chance. Give us a chance. Stay long enough to see if what we've built in crisis can survive in peace. What if the court doesn't accept it? I'm human, null-blooded. I'll never fit their expectations. Then we change their expectations. His voice was firm. I'm king. That means something. And if I choose you, if you choose me, they'll adjust. Jade pulled back just enough to look at him. You're very confident. I'm terrified, Gideon admitted. Terrified you'll realize you can do better, that you'll wake up one day and remember I'm a vampire king who drinks blood and sleeps in a coffin and can't give you a normal life. I don't sleep in a coffin, Gideon said. That's just mortal propaganda. I don't want normal, Jade said. I never fit in the mortal world because I was too strange for them, and I never fit at court because I was too useless. But with you, I don't feel strange or useless. I just feel like myself, and that's enough. It's more than enough, Gideon said. It's everything. He kissed her then, soft and careful, as if she might break. Jade leaned into him, and let herself believe in the impossible thing that was happening. A vampire king and a worthless human, finding something neither had expected in the midst of crisis and conspiracy. When they finally broke apart, Jade said, I still want to visit the mortal quarter. Check on my family. You understand? Of course. When do you want to go? Tomorrow, and... She hesitated. I'd like you to come with me. If you can. I want you to see that part of my life. Meet the people who matter to me. Gideon's expression softened into something close to joy. I would be honored. The next evening, they traveled to the mortal quarter together. Gideon wore simple clothes, his hair tied back, looking more like a wealthy merchant than a king. Jade led him through the narrow streets to the herb shop where she'd grown up. Her mother was behind the counter, grinding something in a mortar. She looked up when the door opened, and her face lit up. Jade, I was beginning to think the court had swallowed you whole. Not quite. Jade hugged her mother tightly. Mama, this is Gideon. He's important to me. Her mother studied Gideon with the sharp eye of someone who'd spent decades reading people. You're one of them, one of the court vampires. I am, Gideon said. Is that a problem? Depends. Are your intentions toward my daughter honorable? Mama, Jade said, mortified. But Gideon smiled a real smile, warm and genuine. Very honorable. I hope to convince her to stay at court. With me. Stay, her mother repeated. She looked at Jade. Is that what you want? I think so, Jade said. But I wanted you to know, wanted you to meet him, to understand why. Her mother was quiet for a moment. Then she nodded. You've been going to that court for 12 years, coming home sad every time because they treated you like a joke. If he makes you something other than sad, I suppose I can't object. She pointed at Gideon. But if you hurt her, you'll come after me with whatever is in that mortar, Gideon said. I understand, and I have no intention of giving you reason to. They stayed for dinner. Jade's younger brother appeared, curious and excited about the vampire at their table. Gideon answered questions about court with patience and humor, and slowly Jade watched her family warm to him. He's good with them, Jade said later, when they were walking back through the night market. I wasn't sure how that would go. They love you. That makes them easy to like. Gideon caught her hand, lacing their fingers together. Thank you for bringing me here, for letting me see this part of your life. Thank you for coming." They walked in comfortable silence for a while, watching the vendors pack up their stalls, the night crowds thinning as dawn approached. Finally, Gideon said, "I've been thinking about something you said, about not fitting in anywhere." "Yes? What if we could fix that? Not just for you, but for others like you. Null-blooded humans who've been dismissed as useless." Jade stopped walking. "What do you mean?" "The blood rank system has been in place for centuries. It measures humans by what they can provide to vampires: strength, enhancement, sustenance. But that's not the only measure of worth. You proved that." He turned to face her. "What if we changed it? Made the laws about mutual benefit rather than extraction, protected null-blooded humans rather than mocking them?" The council would never agree. The council just watched one of their own try to enslave their king. They're vulnerable, open to reform. His eyes were bright with conviction. "And you could help. Sit on the council yourself as an advocate. Make sure the changes actually protect the people they're meant to protect." "Me? On the council?" Jade laughed. "I'm not qualified for that. You're more qualified than most of them. You understand both worlds. You've lived in both. And you're smart enough to see through political games." He squeezed her hand. "Think about it. You wanted to know what happens now, after the crisis. This could be what happens. Real change, real progress." Jade thought about it, about all the other humans who'd been tested and found wanting, dismissed as useless and sent back to live in the shadows, about the system that measured worth in blood strength alone. "I'd need help," she said slowly. "Support. I can't do it alone. You'd have me and Lucian, and probably half the council once they see what you're proposing." Gideon smiled. "We could make this better, Jade. Together." "Together," she repeated. "I like the sound of that." They returned to the palace as dawn broke above. Gideon showed her to the east wing, to the blue suite that had become almost familiar. At the door, he paused. "I meant what I said earlier, about this not being a proposal yet, but I want you to know I'm going to ask. Soon, when the time is right." "I'll be ready," Jade said. He kissed her again, long and deep, before finally pulling away. "Rest. We have a council session this evening and we should prepare. If we're going to propose reforms, we need to be strategic about it." Jade watched him go, then closed the door and leaned against it, her heart full. A month ago, she'd been nothing. A joke, the useless one. Now she was planning legal reforms with a vampire king who looked at her like she hung the moon. Life, she thought, was very strange and very good. The reforms took 6 months to hammer out, 6 months of council sessions and arguments and careful negotiation. Jade attended everyone, seated beside Gideon, offering input and pushing back when the elders tried to water down protections. Slowly, painfully, the blood rank system was dismantled. In its place came new laws that recognized humans as partners rather than resources, that protected null-blooded humans from discrimination, that established penalties for abuse or exploitation. It wasn't perfect, but it was better. And Jade helped make it so. During those months, her relationship with Gideon deepened. They spent evenings in his study, talking about everything and nothing. He taught her about vampire history and politics. She taught him about mortal concerns and herb lore. They argued about policy and laughed about court gossip and fell asleep together in chairs by the window, waking at sunset tangled together. "You should turn her," Lucien said one evening. He'd become a regular presence, a friend to both of them. "If you're serious about her staying." "I am serious," Gideon said. "But that's her choice, not mine." "Have you asked her?" "Not yet." Gideon looked at Jade, who was across the room talking to Elder Constantine about the new human advocacy office they were establishing. "I will, when she's ready. What if she says no? Then I'll love her as a mortal for as long as I have her." Gideon's voice was steady. "And I'll be grateful for every moment." But when he finally asked, 6 months after the night she'd broken his compulsion, Jade didn't hesitate. They were in his study, alone, reviewing the final draft of the reform legislation. Gideon set down his pen and turned to her. "I have 2 questions for you," he said. "And you can answer them in any order you like. All right. First, will you marry me, formally, officially, in front of the court and your family and anyone who cares to witness? Will you be my partner in this life, for as long as it lasts? Jade's breath caught. Yes, of course, yes. Second, will you let me turn you? Not because I need you to, not because it serves any purpose except giving us more time together, but because I'm selfish and I want you with me for centuries, not just decades. Yes, Jade said again. To both. Always yes. The turning happened quietly, in Gideon's private chambers, with only Lucian as witness. It was painful. Jade had been warned about that, but Gideon held her through it, his voice steady, anchoring her as her body changed. When she woke 3 days later, the world looked different, sharper, brighter. She could hear Gideon's heartbeat across the room, slow and steady. Could smell the old stone of the palace, the oil in the lamps, the blood moving through Lucian's veins in the hallway outside. How do you feel? Gideon asked. He was sitting beside the bed, looking exhausted and relieved. Strange. Good. Very hungry. He smiled. That's normal. We'll feed you carefully, teach you control. He took her hand. There's one more thing. Something that happened during the turning. What? You're what we call a silent one. It's rare, happens perhaps once every few centuries. You're immune to compulsion, completely. Any vampire who tries to influence you will find nothing. Just silence. Jade thought about that. About her null blood becoming null thoughts, unreachable and untouchable. Is that because of what I was? Probably. Your blood was already inert. The turning preserved that quality, amplified it. Gideon's expression was complicated, proud, awed, maybe slightly concerned. It means you'll never be controlled, never be compelled. You're free in a way most vampires never are. And you're sure you want to marry someone you can never influence? Jade asked. Someone who'll argue with you forever? I'm counting on it, Gideon said. He leaned in, kissing her softly. Welcome to immortality, Jade Zaros. I'm not Zaros yet, she pointed out. We're not married yet. A technicality. We'll fix it soon. They fixed it 3 months later, in a ceremony that blended vampire tradition with mortal custom. It took place in the night market, beneath the enchanted stars, with both courts present the vampire nobility and Jade's family and friends from the mortal quarter. Jade wore deep green silk that made her eyes vivid. Gideon wore black and silver, his white hair unbound. Elder Constantine officiated, speaking the old words about partnership and eternity. They exchanged rings forged from mixed metals, silver and gold, vampire and mortal, bound together. When it was done, when they were officially married, the celebration spilled out into the market. Music played. Food was served. Vampires and humans mingled more freely than they had in centuries, the reforms making space for new relationships, new understanding. You did this, Lucian said, appearing beside Jade with 2 glasses of wine. You changed everything. We did it, Jade corrected. All of us. Fair enough. He raised his glass. To the queen who was useless. To the king who knew better, Jade replied, raising her own glass. They drank, and she looked across the crowd to find Gideon watching her. He raised his glass in silent salute, and she felt the bond between them, not compulsion, not blood magic, just love, simple and strong and chosen. Later, when the celebration was winding down, Gideon pulled her aside. I have something to show you. He led her through the market to a small building she didn't recognize. When he unlocked the door and ushered her inside, she saw it was a shop empty now, but with good bones. Large windows, sturdy shelves, space for tables or chairs. What is this? She asked. It's yours, if you want it. Gideon moved to the center of the room, his voice echoing slightly. I thought you might want to continue your herb work, but also... He hesitated. I thought this could be a place for null-blooded humans, a school maybe, or a gathering place, somewhere they know they're welcome, that they matter. Jade walked slowly through the space, imagining it. Tables where humans could learn about their rights under the new laws. Shelves stocked with herbs and remedies. A place that was neither fully court nor fully mortal quarter, but something in between, something new. "It's perfect," she said. "When can I start?" "Whenever you like. It's yours." She turned to him, this vampire king who'd called her to his side when the whole court went silent, who'd seen worth where everyone else saw uselessness, who'd given her partnership and love, and now this, a place to build something meaningful. "Thank you," she said, "for all of it, for seeing me." "Thank you for staying," Gideon replied. "For choosing this, choosing me." "I'll always choose you," Jade said, and meant it. The shop opened 2 months later. Jade called it the Null House, both a reference to null blood and to the idea of a blank slate, a place to start over, to build something new. It became exactly what she'd imagined. Part school, part community center, part refuge. Null-blooded humans came to learn their rights, to meet others like them, to understand they weren't alone or worthless. Jade ran it with the same fierce dedication she'd brought to the council sessions, and Gideon supported her completely. He visited often, sitting in on classes, talking with the humans who came through. Slowly, gradually, the relationship between vampires and mortals in Naples began to shift, not just because of the laws, but because of the example they set. A year after their wedding, Jade stood in the Null House preparing for a festival. The night market was celebrating the first anniversary of the reforms, and the shop was hosting events all evening. She was arranging tables when Gideon appeared in the doorway. "Need help?" he asked. "Always." She tossed him a tablecloth. "We're expecting a crowd." They worked together in comfortable silence, setting up space for the celebration. When everything was ready, Gideon pulled her close. "I have something to tell you," he said. "Should I be worried?" "No, it's good. The council voted this morning to make you an official advocate, not just an advisor, a full voting member." Jade stared at him. "They what?" "You've been pushing for reform and fighting for humans for over a year. They finally acknowledged it should be official. You'll have a seat at the table, a vote on all decisions." He was smiling. "You're part of the council now, Jade. Permanently." "I can't believe they agreed." "They'd be fools not to. You've proven yourself 100 times over." He kissed her forehead. "You've earned this." The festival that evening was everything Jade had hoped for. Humans and vampires mingled freely, sharing food and music and conversation. The Null House was packed, people spilling out into the street. Someone started dancing, and soon half the crowd had joined in. Jade stood at the edge of it all, watching when her mother appeared beside her. "You look happy," her mother said. "I am. Is that strange?" "Not at all. You deserve it." Her mother squeezed her hand. "I'm proud of you, Jade. What you've built here, what you've become. It's remarkable. I had help. You always say that. But you're the one who did the work." Her mother glanced at Gideon, who was talking with a group of young humans near the door. "He's good for you, good to you. That's all I ever wanted." "I know." Jade hugged her mother tightly. "Thank you. For everything. For raising me to believe I was worth something, even when the court said otherwise." "You were always worth something," her mother said fiercely. "They were just too blind to see it." Later, when the festival was winding down and most of the crowd had dispersed, Jade and Gideon walked back through the night market together. The enchanted stars glittered above them, and music still drifted from distant stalls. "This is nice," Jade said. "Walking together, no crisis, no emergency, just this." "This is my favorite part," Gideon admitted. "The quiet moments, when it's just us." "Even after everything? The reforms, the council, all the work we've been doing?" "Especially after all that, because it proves we weren't just forged in crisis. We work in peace too." He pulled her closer. "We're building something real, Jade. Not just a marriage, but a partnership, a life, together." "Forever," Jade said. "Literally, we have forever now." "Forever," Gideon agreed, "and I intend to spend every moment of it proving I made the right choice when I called for you that first night." "You mean when you called for the useless one and terrified the entire court?" "That night, yes. He was laughing now. Best decision I ever made. Best decision we both made, Jade corrected. I could have left, could have said no, but I stayed. You stayed, Gideon repeated like a prayer. You stayed, and you saved me, and you changed everything. We changed everything, Jade said firmly. Together. They reached the palace and climbed to the east wing, to the chambers they now shared. Inside, Gideon pulled her close, and Jade let herself sink into his embrace, feeling the steady coolness of his body against hers, the certainty of his presence. This was what she'd chosen. Not the throne or the power or even the immortality, though those things were part of it. She'd chosen partnership with someone who saw her clearly, who valued her for exactly what she was. She'd chosen a life built on mutual respect and shared purpose. She'd chosen love, and been chosen in return. What are you thinking? Gideon asked softly. That I'm glad you called for me, Jade said. That night when the whole court went silent, I'm glad you saw something in me worth calling for. I saw exactly what you are, Gideon said. Someone extraordinary, someone essential, someone I couldn't imagine existing without. You're unusually romantic tonight. I'm unusually happy tonight. He kissed her, slow and thorough. I have everything I want. My throne is secure, my court is healing, and I have you. What more could I possibly need? Nothing, Jade said. We have everything. And in that moment, in the quiet of their chambers with the night market humming softly below and eternity stretching out before them, it was true. They had everything that mattered. Each other. Purpose. A future built on choice rather than necessity. The useless one had become essential. The king had become whole. And together they'd built something neither could have imagined, a love that had started in crisis and grown into something unshakable, something eternal. In the nights that followed, they continued their work. The reforms expanded, touching more areas of vampire-mortal relations. The Null House grew, adding programs and outreach. Jade's position on the council became less controversial, more accepted. She and Gideon became a fixture of the court, their partnership a model for the kind of mutual respect they were trying to build into law. But the best moments remained the quiet ones. Evening walks through the market, debates in the study that turned into laughter. Mornings when they'd wake tangled together and spend an hour just talking, planning, dreaming about the future. Do you ever miss it? Gideon asked one evening. They were in their chambers, Jade curled against his side, both of them reading. Being mortal, being able to walk in sunlight. Sometimes, Jade admitted, but not enough to regret this. What about you? Do you ever wish you'd chosen someone else? Someone with powerful blood, someone who could enhance your abilities? Never. Gideon set down his book, turning to face her fully. You gave me something no powerful blood ever could. You gave me freedom, clarity, yourself, with nothing held back and nothing asked in return. He cupped her face gently. You're not what I expected, Jade. You're so much better. Just better? She teased. Infinitely better, remarkably better. The best thing that ever happened to me in 4 centuries of existence. He kissed her softly. Is that sufficiently clear? It'll do, Jade said, smiling against his lips. Years passed, then decades. The reforms took root, becoming the new normal. Children grew up in a Naples where null-blooded humans were protected and valued, where vampires and mortals worked together more often than not. The Null House expanded twice, eventually becoming an institution rather than just a shop. Jade's mother passed peacefully in her sleep at 78, surrounded by family. Jade grieved as she knew she would again and again as mortal loved ones aged and died. But she had Gideon beside her through it, steady and understanding, and that made the grief bearable. Lucian eventually found his own partner, a sharp-tongued human woman who ran a bookshop in the Mortal Quarter and took absolutely no nonsense from anyone. The 4 of them became inseparable, a unit that governed and protected the court together. On the 50th anniversary of the reforms, the council threw a celebration. The entire court gathered, along with representatives from the mortal quarter to mark how far they'd come. Jade stood on the dais beside Gideon, looking out at the crowd, and felt overwhelming gratitude for the life they'd built. "Thank you," she said to the assembled vampires and humans, "all of you, for taking a chance on change, for believing that we could be better, for proving that worth isn't measured in blood alone." The crowd erupted in applause. Gideon took her hand, squeezing gently, and Jade squeezed back. That night, after the celebration had ended and they were alone again, Gideon pulled her into the study where this had all begun, the same desk, the same chairs by the window, the same view of the night market below. "Do you remember the first night?" he asked, "when I asked you to stay? Of course, I was terrified." "So was I." He settled into his chair, pulling her onto his lap. "I was terrified you'd say no. Terrified I'd lose myself completely. Terrified of what would happen if we failed. But we didn't fail. No, we didn't. Because you were braver than I had any right to ask you to be." He wrapped his arms around her, holding her close. "I love you, Jade, more than I thought I could love anyone, more than I have words for." "I love you too," Jade said. "Even when you're being impossibly noble and self-sacrificing." "I'm not being self-sacrificing. I'm being honest." He kissed her temple. "You saved me, not just from Marcellus, but from myself. From the loneliness of being king, from forgetting what it meant to be human, metaphorically speaking." "You saved me too," Jade pointed out, "from being useless, from thinking I didn't matter. You always mattered. I just helped you see it." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the market below. After a while, Jade said, "Do you think we'll still be doing this in another 50 years? Another century?" "Yes, though hopefully with less conspiracy and compulsion. And more festivals." "Definitely more festivals." Gideon rested his chin on her shoulder. "We have eternity, Jade. We can fill it however we like. What do you want?" Jade thought about it. About the Null House and the council and the work they were doing. About the life they'd built together, brick by brick, choice by choice. "This," she said finally. "I want this. You and me and the work we're doing. I want to keep making things better, keep helping people, and I want to spend every night of forever with you." "Then that's what we'll do," Gideon said. "Forever. Together. Making things better." "Together," Jade echoed. And in the study where it had all begun, surrounded by books and papers and the quiet evidence of their shared life, they sealed that promise with a kiss. The useless one and the vampire king, partners in every sense that mattered, facing eternity with clear eyes and joined hands. The court had gone silent once, when Gideon called for her. Now it thrived with the noise of real change, real progress, and at the center of it all was a love that had started in desperation and grown into something unshakable. They had everything, and they would make sure everyone else had everything too, the rights, the protections, the recognition that every person had worth, regardless of blood or rank or status. It was the work of a lifetime, of many lifetimes. But they had all the time in the world, and they would use every moment of it together.